In the winter of 1817, poets Horace Smith and Percy Bysshe Shelley entered a friendly, timed writing competition. The theme was one they both found haunting: the inevitable decay of empires and the hubris of the men who lead them. Shelley's entry, a sonnet titled Ozymandias, describes the fragmented, trunkless legs of stone belonging to the ancient pharaoh Ramesses II. The ruler's boastful inscription, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair," is ironically mocked by the lone and level sands swallowing his legacy. For centuries, we've looked at ruins like these and fallen into the psychological trap of the Monumental Fallacy. It's the belief that a civilization's strength is measured by its physical mass, that massive palaces and towering walls are what secure a place in history. But looking at the timeline of state collapses, a different pattern begins to emerge. In many cases, the urge to build massive, unyielding monuments appears to be a reaction to the transient nature of political power, an attempt to anchor a fading authority in sheer physical mass. If relying on cold stone is a misdiagnosis of civilizational resilience, it raises a question. If the monuments always fail, what are the invisible structures that actually allow a society to survive? To understand how civilizations actually grow, we have to look past physical architecture and examine the invisible engine of cumulative culture. This is the capacity for high-fidelity cultural transmission, our unique ability to retain innovations and pass them down without the baseline knowledge degrading over time. Long before the invention of writing, this crucial data wasn't recorded on stone, but engineered into sophisticated oral traditions. Rhythms, alliteration, and song poetry functioned as acoustic information technologies, allowing ancient cultures to lock in complex instructions for everything from metallurgy to deep-sea navigation. Indigenous populations took this further by mapping high-stakes survival knowledge directly onto the environment. By linking specific stars or geographic features to essential data, they turned vast landscapes into a massive memory space, ensuring that vital information survived for millennia through ritual and landscape. A civilization's initial rise relies entirely on these living networks of memory and adaptability, systems that function completely independently of static objects. So why do these successful living systems eventually and inevitably unravel? We can model this breakdown through a phenomenon known as the wealth pump. During periods of stability, economic growth naturally begins funneling resources upward to an elite class, while wages for the broader population stagnate. This upward flow leads to elite overproduction. The elite class grows in size, but the number of actual positions of power and prestige remains fixed. This creates a fierce zero-sum competition, producing radicalized counter-elites who challenge the establishment to secure their own status. To manage this unrest, the state adds expensive layers of bureaucracy and military force. This follows Joseph Tainter's law of declining marginal returns. Eventually, the cost of maintaining this massive administrative apparatus outpaces the actual benefits it provides. The society reaches a threshold where more labor and capital yield progressively less utility. At this point, collapse isn't a sudden apocalypse, but a rapid structural contraction. The central state, starved for resources, cut spending on distant provinces. These outer territories realize the center no longer provides enough security to justify the taxes, and the entire system begins to fragment. Civilizational collapse is rarely an external murder. It is a predictable, mathematical consequence of unmanaged internal complexity. However, there is a historical model that bypassed this pathology of complexity entirely: the Nomadic Empire of Genghis Khan. The Mongols built the largest contiguous land empire in human history without erecting massive stone monuments or even establishing a permanent centralized capital for much of their expansion. Instead, they focused on functional, invisible structures: the Pax Mongolica that secured trade across the Silk Road, a unified administrative script for communication, and a policy of religious tolerance that integrated diverse populations. The Mongol legacy suggests that a civilization's ultimate reach is determined by logistical agility and the active flow of information, proving that movement can be more resilient than static mass. If we apply this same lens to our own era, We have to look at the medium we've chosen for our own historical record. Internet pioneers like Vint Cerf have begun issuing warnings about a digital dark age. They argue that by moving our records exclusively to digital formats, we may be throwing our institutional memory into an information black hole. A 3,000-year-old clay tablet requires nothing more than a human eye and knowledge of the language to decode. Modern digital files, however, suffer from bit rot and rely on a complex ecosystem of hardware and software that becomes obsolete in decades. We currently possess the most voluminous record-keeping apparatus in human history, yet we encode our most vital information on the most fragile medium ever invented. If the underlying technological infrastructure were to suffer a severe disruption, future historians might actually know significantly less about the 21st century than we have managed to learn about antiquity. Escaping this cycle requires a shift from building static monuments to building regenerative ones. A physical example of this regenerative algorithm is the Ise Grand Shrine in Japan. As this aerial view shows, the complex is built on two adjacent, identical plots of land. Every 20 years, through a ritual called Shikinen Sengu, the entire shrine is meticulously dismantled and rebuilt from scratch on the adjacent lot. This process ensures that the architectural techniques and cultural memory aren't just stored in a design, but are actively, physically transmitted across generations of craftsmen. It bypasses physical decay by making the act of rebuilding a constant, living requirement. True civilizational immortality is not achieved by building a permanent object. It is achieved by preserving the living, breathing knowledge of how to build it.